Hi, this is Brian Teare, and I am reading for Poets House. I'm going to read a poem called Doomstead Days, which is the title poem of my most recent book, published by Nightboat Books in 2019. The poem is a meditation on a healing crisis, as well as the patriarchal politics of our current administration. And it takes place in the city of Philadelphia, alongside of and in relation to its creeks and rivers. Doomstead Days. Today's gender is rain. It touches everything with its little silver epistemology, modeled like a brook trout, with 100 spots white as bark scars on this slim trunk thrust up from one sidewalk square. The 4 square feet of open ground given a street tree, twiggy perimeter continually clipped by parking or car door or passing trash truck that snaps an actual branch I find haunting the little plot its winged achenes auto-rotate down to. It's not that I don't like a wide sidewalk or the 45 bus that grinds right by, but if organisms didn't insist on forms of resistance, they'd be dead. Of anthropocentric techno-mechanical systems whose grids restrict the living through perpetual stress that elicits intense physical response like an animal panic hitting the psoas with cramps or root fungus sunk in the maple's allotment of city property as tolerably wide as the migraine that begins at the base of my skull and pinches with breath calipers my temples until the feel of flay arrays the dura's surface. Inside the bones, inside the head, the healer holds in her hands and says, "The occiput is shut, flat, and irks the nerves that thread through its unappeasable shunt into the spine." I see a white light. I keep thinking about the way long drought dries out topsoil so deep beneath its surface the first hard rain wreaks flood, taking the good dirt with it the way today's wet excess escapes its 4 square feet of exposed root and rivers out. A flecks of sediment, alluvial over the civic cement of the Anthropocene and currents, a supple, rippled velvet done as Wissahickon Creek in fall's brief season of red and spawn when brook trout in chill, quick shallows once dug into gravel to let nested eggs mix with milt and turn pearls, translucent as raw, unpolished quartz, each white-eyed ova flawed by a black fleck. My eyes close over at the height of migraine, fertile error waiting with incipient tail, ready to propel it deeper into nausea until the healer halts its hatching and calms neuralgia between the heels of her hands, pressing the occiput back open into the natural curve the bones forget, the way the banks of the Wissahickon have forgotten rapids, rinsing schist shaded by hemlock that kept the brook trout cold, each patterned aspect of habitat lost. First to dams and mills and industry runoff and plots of flax, Germantown planted for paper and cloth, made with water's power and hauled out of the precipitous gorge up rough, narrow roads south to the city port before Adelgids took the crucial dark from under hemlocks. Sun heating the rocky creek down steep rills to the lower Schuylkill, wide in its final miles, dammed at Fairmount for 2 centuries of coal silt and dredge, fabric dye, and sewage that gave rise to typhus, and refinery spills that gave rise to fire. Rinsed by this gender that remembers, currents circuit, anadromous shad and striped bass leaving the Atlantic, heading upriver, shedding salt water for fresh in runs whose numbers turned the green river silver, if color counts as epistemology. Spring's sun on the backs of 1,000 shad as a form of knowing, local to another century, and the duller color of ours is the way the word gender remembers. It once meant to fuck, beget, or give birth, sibling to generate and engender, all fertile at the root and continuous as falling water molecules, smoothing the sparkling gnarl of Wissahickon schist until its surface mirrors their force, the fuel element and fundament alike derive thriving from being at its biggest when its kinetic energy headed toward intensity. Everything's body connected by this totally elastic materiality. I feel as ecstatic wide dilation when the shut skull gives up resistance to the healer's hands and the occiput opens its bones. My mind's eye goes, okay, I'm awake now. Rowdy with trout, psoas relaxed. My body's a conduit. It roars with water, passing from past to present through pipes and riparian ecotones alike. All of my fluids, pollutants, cycling back into my own watershed, toxins and heavy metals bonded to blood, stored in liver and fat, C8, glyphosate, mercury, and lead. It's awkward, okay? I keep thinking about the man who asked me to visit his doomstead, which seems kinky for a first date. What's the safe word for men with genders built for the world's end? Men with weaponized genders holding solar power and canned goods, bottled water genders, tending small vegetable gardens out back behind the chickens, concrete genders, sealed and lead, their doors secured from inside with thick steel bars, fringe, libertarian, end times genders, hetero girly camo gun calendars, apocalyptic tits pinned on brick walls by lone bunks, so the men can cross out each day once civil society ends with a pathetic snivel like, please help. Doomstead men live Doomstead Days already, sealed in extreme fiction, as if there were ever a way to stay safely self-contained, by which I mean the Anthropocene is its own gender, biospheric in scale, its persistent flux from fossil record to Antarctic ice cores so uncontainable we all exhibit it, or the local sense of personal chosen expression, strategic or contingent, like fertility, medicalized, tracked, managed, or casual, happy fucking without a condom, risky given the odds, leveraged against us, and the blameless microbes seeking homes in our nooks and tubes so I don't visit his doomstead. A psychic structure I feel in my head as blocked thought I watch play out in the Schuylkill where it pools wide, shallow with silt above Fairmount Dam. I stand on the bank and no, I'm not supposed to posit an analogy between the river and my body, but courtesy of this dam, the city siphons its water into me, another human intervention diverting its path, each of my cells a little prison the river sits in, so we're related on a molecular level so intimate I think I can say it wants speed and movement free enough to jump the strained relation to human needs it serves without relief, without the hands that hold my bones and tend my fascia that remember a different posture, without blockage or pain, a model for undoing harm done by capital, empowered to frack during record drought, millions of gallons of toxic wastewater injected into earth or kept in open ponds, prone and porous in western counties where river otters have rebounded after last being spotted in the Allegheny in 1899. Otters are raucous and chirp, chitter, chuckle and grumble when wrestling together or sliding on ice, playful biophony rivers have missed for a whole century like brook trout rooting in loose, cool gravel, where the plash of insects fallen from hemlocks, the intact eastern riverine biome, one serious mess of sound enmeshed in sound, enmeshed in biotic patterns as heavy as traffic when the weekend weather is nice. And I ride the early 27 bus to the Wissahickon. It's not that I don't like the city. It's just if biodiversity is a measure of health, a city is, by definition, sick with people and built structures crowding out other lives. Though I love signs, species persist. This sidewalk moss, probably Bryum argentum, native to guano-covered seabird rookeries, this fertile ginkgo stinking up the street with stone fruits crushed underfoot, this nameless fern in a downpipe drain, so modest in scale, like the simple songs of house sparrows everywhere, though this chubby one is hustling a fallen everything bagel of seeds and crumbs. And it's not that I don't like people either. Our sociality, genitals and smells, interesting diction, surprising privacies revealed at parties, bars, and in bedrooms, our genders and acts, various and wet as thought product of dissolved salts, washing our brains in rich cognition that falters without water, which can't be taken by the head in the hands and held in the hopes of healing. Its body is too vast. Its mind, boundless by definition. The world is awake. Be careful, my dears. It is the gender that remembers everything. And I just wanted to thank you all for listening, and I wanted to thank Poets House for continuing to provide a space for poetry and for gathering during this time when we can't do that. Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed these programs, please consider giving a contribution to Poets House. For more than 30 years, they've kept the door wide open to everyone for the joy of poetry. Recently, they have temporarily had to shut the door and are reeling from the financial implications. Please give, even a small donation if you can. Thank you.